Congress missed a big opportunity to stop those AIG bonuses. In fact, a certain protection was constructed and signed into law. The big mystery in Washington today was who was responsible for adding that language. Chief Washington correspondent Jim Engel has been hot on the trail all day today, and now we know at least part of the answer. Jim?
That's right, Brett. Someone inserted language in this year's $787 billion stimulus bill that actually protected bonuses at AIG and other companies that are getting federal bailout money. And one senator says that language was forced on Congress by the administration. Democratic Senator Chris Dodd of Connecticut originally proposed language in the stimulus bill to limit executive compensation at companies getting federal money, but it also included a statement that such restrictions shall not be construed to prohibit any bonus payment required to be paid pursuant to a written employment contract executed on or before February 11, 2009, which would clearly protect those AIG bonuses everyone is now so angry about. But Dodd told Fox yesterday that's not the language he wrote.
When the language left the Senate, the language that I wrote on executive compensation had no dates in it like this at all.
Senator Dodd says after lawmakers of both parties got together to iron out differences between the House and Senate, his language got changed and the bonus protection got added.
I can tell you this much. When my language left the Senate, it did not include it. When it came back, it did.
So who put in the language that protected bonuses? Several lawmakers say that happened before the bipartisan conference committee in a smaller meeting with Democratic leaders Senator Harry Reid and Speaker Nancy Pelosi, among others, along with Rahm Emanuel from the White House. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, who was in the conference committee, said by the time the stimulus bill got to that group, it had already been changed. This meeting was a photo op, he said, that took place hours after Majority Leader Reid announced that the Democrats had reached a deal. Every Republican on the conference committee was left out of the negotiations and consultations entirely. Grassley says the changes were all made by Democratic leaders behind closed doors. At the time, Republicans and a few Democrats loudly complained that no one knew what was in the bill.
Here we are with 1,100 pages. 1,100 pages not one member of this body has read. Not one.
And Senator Max Baucus says even the Democrats in the conference committee didn't get a chance to examine the changes.
I did not have time. Other conferees did not have time to address many of the provisions that were modified.
Another provision punishing bonuses got dropped, a bipartisan proposal from two senators, Democrat Ron Wyden and Republican Olympia Snowe, who wanted to impose an additional 35% tax on any bonuses over $10,000 on top of regular taxes.
I'm really surprised by, all of the outrage that's being expressed today, when in fact we could have done something about it to prevent this kind of situation.
We shouldn't be here. That should have passed, but it didn't.
So the stimulus bill the president signed actually protected the bonuses he and others now rail against and dropped a provision to discourage them. Senator Wyden says Treasury Secretary Geithner and White House economic advisor Larry Summers fought to remove the tax on bonuses, and Senator Dodd now says the administration forced that change in the language that ended up protecting bonuses. So you now have Democrats clearly blaming the administration for protecting bonuses, perhaps because they thought they were legitimate contracts, among other things. But that isn't exactly the story the administration has been telling about the most controversial issue in the country. Brett?
And I'm going to start off just by talking about these AIG bonuses you've been hearing about. Now, I know a lot of you are outraged about this. Rightfully so, I'm outraged too. It's hard to understand that a company that's relying on extraordinary assistance from taxpayers to keep its doors open would be paying anybody lavish bonuses.
What happened with these bonuses was a mugging on Wall Street. And when you get mugged, you want two things to happen. You want justice and you want your money back. And the bill that we are working on with Chairman Rangel would accomplish both objectives. It establishes justice and it gets our money back. The middle class of America and working families will no longer subsidize pay for failure. We passed a Recovery Act. We did not pass a license to steal. And we're not going to allow for one more day for the American people, for middle class and working families, to subsidize that pay for failure. Our message is very clear. to these executives who took these bonuses and ran, if you won't give the bonuses back, we will tax them back.
Any firm that has given a bonus and received over $5 billion of federal funds, the bonuses that have been received will be taxed at the rate of 90%. That is their overall income. The bonus will be taken out and taxed at a rate of 90%. Whatever is below that in terms of regular income will be taxed at the regular 35%. If the bonus and the income raises to a level of $250,000, that will be taxed at the regular rate. But anything beyond that in terms of the bonus will be taxed at the 90% rate. Those people that, when they pay back the federal government, this will expire in terms of the 90% rate, but not until they pay it back.
Isn't then it's a little hypocritical for folks on Capitol Hill today to be grilling this AIG executive, a guy who's basically making $1 a year, who came back from retirement to try to bail out this company, for these folks to be grilling him when in fact it was, I mean, this decision was made on Capitol Hill. They could have prevented this.
That is a very, very good point, and that's basically one of the reasons why we were, CNN, Drew Griffin, and other people at CNN, and other colleagues of ours here on Capitol Hill were trying to figure out why and how Congress could be outraged as they were, and not just Congress, but also the Obama administration be as outraged as they were when they did have this opportunity, and frankly a lot of other opportunities to do this, to stop this, because that's what they do. They legislate, and they could have figured out a way to try to stop these bonuses. And guess what? Because of this outrage, Anderson, starting tomorrow, the House of Representatives, they're going to go back and try to fix what they didn't do before, and they're going to try to tax these bonuses to try to effectively strip them at this point after they're getting the outrage from their constituents.
Yeah, well, it seems like the horse has left the barn on this one. It's a little bit like folks in police detective in Casablanca saying he's shocked to find out there's gambling going on in Rick's casino. These people on Capitol Hill knew about this stuff, could have prevented it, didn't, and now they're acting surprised and outraged. It's unbelievable. A lot of folks are talking about this on the blog, ac360.com. Join in on the blog.
For those bonuses, they didn't read the bill. Then to go after one group of individuals is scary, because if they can go after them, can't they come after the rest of us?
Well, sure they can, Sean, and I think that this is sort of maybe a picture of things to come. Look, if Congress wants to hold somebody accountable, what they ought to do is tax their own income by 90%. They're the people who created this mess by not reading a bill that they hastily had to sign, because if they didn't, the world would come to an end. Then it sat on Barack Obama's desk for almost 5 days before he got around to signing it. It obviously wasn't that big of an urgency. And the result is that you've got Chris Dodd now claiming that this language was written into the bill without any human involvement, I guess by divine inspiration during the middle of the night. Then he has to come back and say, no, I guess I did authorize it to be there. We don't know whether Geithner's telling the truth or not about when he knew that this language was there, but it's pretty apparent that he's got some credibility issues. But the tax way, I mean, the idea of taxing people by 90% to get the money back is absurd. And once they start taxing one group of people at 90%, they'll probably be coming after the rest of Americans soon.
Go ahead.
You received $100,000 from AIG during
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
You received $100,000 from AIG during the campaign. How do you feel about those contributions today? Do you plan to do anything about it? And at least one member of Congress has now called for your Secretary of the Treasury to resign. Your thoughts?
Well, I have complete confidence in Tim Geithner and my entire economic team. Understand, as I said before, Tim Geithner didn't draft these contracts with AIG. There has never been a Secretary of the Treasury, except maybe Alexander Hamilton right after the Revolutionary War, who's had to deal with the multiplicity of issues that Secretary Geithner's having to deal with, all at the same time.